Redditors who have been expelled. What did you do? Story 1. I gained administrator access to my school's email system. I found that when I used a different version of the client software at home, I could see the number of characters in a password when I viewed the properties of an account. I found an account with administrator rights and no password. If you deleted a user's password, then any password they input would work, so I could use other people's accounts undetected. We had announcements read over the intercom each morning. The secretary would compile them and the dean would read them. I could use any account. So when the announcement email was sent, I unsent it, modified it, and resent it. A girl I liked had just broken up with her boyfriend for cheating on her. He had gotten head in the bathroom. I added, "Congratulations to names redacted for all your hard work in the bathroom on Wednesday," to the rolling announcements. This was a very small school, only 80 to 100 kids per grade, so nearly every student knew what I meant. When it was read out loud, laughter erupted in my class, and I could hear it coming from nearby classes as well. I also got sports teams out early, and modified and forged notes to parents about friends. After 2 weeks, I was ratted out by a kid who was sending corn and expelled. They didn't know about the security flaw, so they didn't fix it. I knew it was my fault for thinking I was some sort of hacker, but I was really angry afterward, especially at the administrator and the dean who worked very hard to make sure I was kicked out. I cancelled the administrator's new auto insurance policy. Then I found a note from the dean to her friends where she talked about getting blackout drunk after eating tacos and getting a jeweled private part piercing. I forwarded it to everyone. She then became known as Taco Sparkle and was taunted relentlessly. She quit at the end of the school year. I feel bad about it now, but it still makes for a pretty good story. Opinion: that is both evil and hilarious. Story 2. TLDR. I brought a can opener to school. Even though I had no prior record of any misbehavior, I was expelled. I didn't like the lunches they served on certain days at my middle school, so I decided to bring a can of food. I didn't think much of it, so I opened the can in plain view. I guess the administrator thought the can opener was a long-distance hole puncher from a distance. Regardless of whether she was right or wrong, the other administrators seemed to support my expulsion for bringing something dangerous to school. My parents were poor, didn't speak English, and weren't active members of the Parent-Teacher Association, so they were really helpless. Murica, early 90s. Opinion: everyone knows that can openers are gateway utensils. Story 3. Okay, so this is a story about my dad. My dad managed to get expelled from school at the tender age of 15. Why? He and a buddy decided to pull a prank on random students by filling up a bunch of garbage cans with water and setting them up at the top of the stairs, a main stairwell of the school. When the bell rang, everybody started heading up the stairs, and my dad and his buddy tipped the garbage cans over and washed everybody down the stairs. I'm not really clear on how he got caught, but he got kicked out shortly after that. Opinion: I can't even imagine the scene. The water knocking everyone down like bowling. Story 4. Not me, but my friend had an unforgettable moment with a teacher in 7th grade. We had a teacher for algebra who wasn't the most approachable person. One day my friend asked if he could go to the bathroom, but the teacher was in the middle of a lesson and didn't want to interrupt. She got a little upset and told him to wait outside the classroom. After about 10 minutes, my friend, who was clearly frustrated and in need of a bathroom break, decided to take matters into his own hands. He ended up relieving himself on the door of the classroom. Just as he was finishing, the teacher opened the door, and there was no turning back. He was stuck in the situation. But the craziest part was that he just looked her straight in the eye and didn't stop until he was done. It was a really awkward moment for both of them, and one that my friend and I still remember to this day. Opinion. That's pretty alpha right there. Story 5. It was my first day at a brand new Catholic school, freshman year. I had no idea what to expect, but I certainly didn't think it would involve smoking the green stuff with the principal's son behind the gym during gym class. He was a junior, and it wasn't like I went into it planning on that kind of trouble, but somehow we ended up smoking behind the gym, completely oblivious to the consequences. Things didn't go well from there. The administration found out, not just because of the illegal substance, or because I had brought them to school, or even because we had used them on school property. It was the fact that I had involved the principal's son in it too. The whole thing turned into a bigger mess than I could have imagined. Of course, in the eyes of the school, the poor boy was just a victim, and no real consequences seemed to come his way. As for me, I got the full force of their wrath, while he only ended up with a after-lunch trash duty for a week. I learned that day how quickly things could spiral out of control, especially when you're new, and how the rules are bent when it involves the principal's kid. Opinion. Well, if you were the one who brought it, I can see why you were the one punished. Story 6. This wasn't me, but a kid in my year. Let's call him Nick. Because, well, that was his name. Nick was the nerdiest, whitest kid you could possibly imagine. He wasn't just a bookworm, though. Nick was also a hacker, and not the typical cringy, "I'm such a hexer" kind of hacker you would imagine from some teenage movie, but a legitimate one. He actually had skills. One day in English class, the teacher carelessly let slip that all the exams were going to be stored in iWise, this network that teachers used for grades, class discussions, and everything school-related. Nick, being the resourceful and slightly misguided person he was, decided this was his golden opportunity. He figured if he could hack into iWise, he would get access to all the exams and have every answer he would need for the tests coming up. I'm not sure exactly what went wrong in the process, but the result was absolutely chaotic. Nick somehow managed to crash the entire school network. All the grades, assessments, reports, financial records, and a huge chunk of archived data were wiped out. It was a mess. A huge mess. Everyone's academic information gone in an instant. Somehow, Nick managed to dodge expulsion for that disaster, which I still don't fully understand. But karma didn't forget him. He was later expelled for something far less technical, lighting sparkles in class. That was the end of his time at the school. Opinion. This is like a guy who escapes a life sentence in prison only to get caught again for robbing an old lady. Story 7. I got expelled 3 times from the same school. The first time wasn't really an expulsion, but I had really bad anxiety in 2nd grade and depression. The school asked my parents to put me on ADD medications. They refused, and thus I was asked to leave. I was allowed to return to the school in 6th grade. However, it was an extremely religious private school, and my mother was a liberal. I had never really actually known that there were people who weren't pro-choice in the world. My civics teacher told us that they crushed the bones in utero and dragged the corpses out of the women's private parts, or some stuff like that. I called her a liar. This got me a detention, and from then on, she made it her mission to give me a detention every single day. I hit the maximum number. I tried really hard to not get any more. However, one day a young boy screamed in my ear. I yelled a bad word, which I don't really think is appropriate for a middle school setting, but whatever. Mind you, boys can say whatever the F they want. I got told it wasn't ladylike language. They asked me to leave, but I was invited back the next year. The next year consisted of Ask Education. We had a question box where we all had to submit anonymous questions about intimacy. Mine was, I feel strange down there every time I see my friend changing in the locker room. Does that mean I might be into guys? Mind you, this was an extremely conservative environment. The guys completely freaked out and started turning on each other. It doesn't end. 2 months later, they somehow figured it was me. I had to apologize to my class. I was exposed to be expelled, but we had a new headmaster/priest who refused because he saw me reading books in church instead of actually paying attention to church. I'm not sure how I got blessed with that logic, but he was very kind. And then I wrote a story about how everyone in my grade was unalived in really ridiculous ways. So that was kind of the final straw. Basically, I was an a-hole. Opinion. I've never heard of someone being allowed back into the same school they were kicked out from. Story 8. Wasn't me, but one of my childhood friends ended up going to high school at a different school than me. Apparently, at his school, one of the kids there stole 1 pound of the green stuff off of him. So my friend decided to pull a sharp kitchen tool on the kid during the middle of lunch. Opinion. To be fair, I would also be similarly mad if 1 pound of the green stuff was stolen from me. That thing's expensive. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and activate the bell button to receive notifications to my latest videos.